Honestly, we're just going to be going straight to the fun teams at this point. Because you know what? I just want to have fun with this. So let's talk about one of the funnest teams in the NFL from last season. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Titan Tavern, where all guests and fans are welcome. I am your host, Tristan. Now, everybody, grab your favorite drink, and let's talk about one of the funnest teams and one of the most entertaining teams from last season. None other than the Detroit Lions. Alrighty, so talking about the Detroit Lions and going over their season with everything for their stats, their wins, their losses, and just doing a brief overview before we get into the full breakdown for this team. Pretty much, we all know exactly how the 2023-2024 season started, with one of the best primetime games throughout the entire season, and it was the season opener in Kansas City. Kansas City versus Detroit was a super fun matchup to watch. And Detroit came out and won. And man, I wish we would have gotten this as our Super Bowl matchup. I think it would have been a lot more entertaining. And then they come off stunning the Chiefs, and then they lose in a shootout against Seattle. I don't know what it's up with them in Seattle, just apparently kind of like what Philadelphia has with Seattle, where they just can't seem to beat them. And then going on a 5-game win streak, winning. And then, of course, they were red hot, but also so were the Baltimore Ravens, and that game was the definition of a game where you just say, we're not even going to watch the film. Everything was bad. And then, of course, you have an insane comeback where the Lions were down 14-26 against the Chicago Bears and won 31-26 with, I believe, about like less than 5 minutes remaining. The thriller in Minnesota and in Detroit against Minnesota and against New Orleans. I don't really know how you let New Orleans, hang around and make them actually look competent, but, And then the absolute decimation that this team did against Denver. The infamous game against the Cowboys with a super controversial call at the end. I mean, making the postseason for the first time in over 30 years, having a home game against the Los Angeles Rams, and your first home game in Detroit being against Matthew Stafford, who led the team for years, and then winning that one and going on and defeating the Buccaneers at home as well. And then really just the tragic loss to San Fran, where they had the game. They just gave up way too much against San Fran, and sadly they lost. Still a super close game, and this team has everything that every NFL team needs. They have a super fun head coach that you would run through walls for. They have a fun quarterback. Their running back room is insanely talented. Their receiving room is insanely talented. They have He was a rookie tight end, and I don't even know. Sam Laporta was an absolute beast as a tight end. This team was just so much fun last season. And that's what these other teams need. I'm not kidding. I think if you'd feel neutral about every team, I would probably go and watch some Lions games from this past season and next season, because I think you're honestly just going to have a lot of fun. Because I had a lot of fun just watching this team and just watching them make their own history. I can't I can't keep praising this team more and more. I think they're one of the best teams in the league. And that's crazy saying something about the Lions, who had just been a mediocre or bad team for so long. But shoot, the NFL is so lucky that they're fun to watch now, and I love it. The fans are lucky. And I truly hope that this team just gets more and more success. And I hope they're the next team to win a Super Bowl. That's just my honest opinion. Alrighty, so breaking down how this team did statistically, you had, of course, the quarterback for every single game this season, which is a first for any team I have gone over this season. I've gone over the Titans, the Jags, and the Texans. And all of them had quarterbacks that missed games. Now, of course, Jared Goff never missed a single game. And he went 407 for 600 out of 605 passing attempts completed, sitting at a very solid 67.3% completion percentage for 4,575 yards. He had an astounding 30 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. And oddly enough, he was sacked 30 times exactly. Basically, he had an extremely good offensive line. That's the thing with this one. It was a constant competition. Who had the better O-line? The Eagles or the Lions? The Eagles or the Lions? And the Lions have been building this team in the most correct way possible, and that is building through the trenches. If your quarterback drops back 605 times, at least, and only gets sacked 30 times, that's insane. That is absolute insanity. In all honesty, I've already said this before. I love Jared Goff. I loved watching him in LA. Sadly, it led to one of the worst Super Bowls of all time, LA versus New England. Goff versus Brady. That had to have been one of the worst Super Bowls in recent memory. But I do think he is good enough to help this team get back to, well, I think he's good enough to get the Lions to their first ever Super Bowl. And I think if they do make it, especially next season, I think they're gonna win. I think they beat anyone in the AFC right now, except for the Chiefs. But I still think they could put up a really good fight. The only reason I say not the Chiefs, you just can't bet against them anymore after what happened last season, where they had one of their worst seasons, period, and they still won the Super Bowl. To the running back room. Obviously, this is one of my more favorite positions for just in general with football. I love watching running backs. So David Montgomery, only playing in 14 games, had 219 carries and ran for 1,015 yards. He was the leader in rushing, and overall, that's a really good, averaging 4.6 yards per carry, a long of 75. I mean, he. A lot of people asked, like, whenever the Lions didn't re-sign Jamal Williams, which is actually one of my favorite players in the NFL. Whenever they let him walk and they got Montgomery, everybody was thinking that the running game was going to take a step back. Honestly, I don't. Even though Jamal Williams broke Barry Sanders' record for rushing touchdowns, I don't think this running game got worse at all. I think it got better. He did have 13 touchdowns with 2 fumbles, and one of them turned into a turnover. But really, the way he played and whenever he was on the field, it was just incredible watching him play. I love seeing just the big running backs that are just stubborn to get brought down. I think anybody that's a Titans fan can relate to that. And then moving on to the speed to their Hulk. You had Jahmyr Gibbs, who played in 15 games with 182 carries and ran for 945 yards, averaging 5.2 per carry, with a long of 36 and 10 rushing touchdowns. First off, that's incredible for a rookie to even get 10 touchdowns, period. That's incredible. That's incredible for a running back who is not a goal line back to get 10 touchdowns, especially with how the offense was for all the teams last season. He is a game changer. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, with how they ran them, and I loved this system that they used, and I think it's actually a very smart system. If whichever running back is hot gets the ball more, but you would notice one drive they'll have Montgomery running, they'll go down and they'll score. The next drive they'll have Gibbs running, they'll go down and they'll score, and then they just swap in between. Or if one's just having a rough day, or if one's just been significantly better, they'll just get more play time. That's got to be the best way I think I've seen running backs get used in a long time. And of course, not only that, David Montgomery was also super effective with the passing game as well. He was 14 of 16 for 117 yards. And Jahmyr Gibbs was 52 out of 71 for 316 yards and a touchdown. So, and of course, Jahmyr Gibbs also did have 2 fumbles as well. One of those also turning into a turnover as well. But you do have your running back that you can hand the ball off to for short yard. You got your speed, you've got your bulk, and both of them can help in the receiving game. Not much more you can ask for out of your running back room. Now we're going on to the receivers. Of course, you had the leading receiver, an absolute beast at wide receiver, arguably a top 5 wide receiver in my opinion. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was targeted 164 times and caught 119 of them for 1,515 yards and 10 touchdowns. So yes, you heard the math. 30, a third of Jared Goff's touchdowns went to Amon-Ra St. Brown. He is the absolute focal point to the receiving game for this team. And he is absolutely incredible. He's arguably top 5 wide receiver. And then you have their second leading receiver, Sam Laporta, who was a rookie tight end, who usually tight ends always struggle going into their first season in the league. He didn't. He just didn't. He was targeted 120 times, catching 86 passes for 889 yards, and also catching 10 touchdowns. So yes, 2/3 of the touchdowns from the quarterback was to their number one receiver and to their number one tight end. That is a deadly duo, and honestly, if the Lions don't make the mistake and just keep Amon-Ra St. Brown, this might verge onto something special between this duo, and I hope it does, because we all love seeing just wide receiver tight end duos that are just incredible. And then of course with the rest of the receiving, you had Reynolds, who went 40 of 64 for 608 yards and 5 touchdowns. You had Jamal. You had Williams, who went 24 of 42 for 354 yards and 2 touchdowns. And you had Brandon Wright, who went 13 of 14 for 91 yards and a touchdown. Yeah, it's just they were super effective with passing the ball, with everything else. And I'm going to actually include something that I haven't before, but yeah. Counting every person that caught a ball, caught at least one pass. You had Antoine Green, you had Dan Skipper, you had Malcolm Rodriguez, which is a linebacker, and you had Khalil Dorsey, which is a cornerback. So they had a offensive lineman catch a ball, they had a linebacker catch a ball, and they had a defensive back also catching. They did what they wanted to do on offense, and it was fun. It's just whatever they wanted, whatever they felt like, it was just fun. And I'm just happy that we had a team like that, where just the offense is just fun to watch. And I know we've had very dominant offenses. We've had the Ravens, who are wishy-washy. We have the Bills, who could be incredible one week and then man the next. We had the Titans never had anything working for them except for like the Falcons game. Like we've had the Chiefs be very dominant against Chicago last season, and them having a dominant offense for the past few seasons. But this is, and those teams are always fun to watch. Just fun to watch offense just throw the ball. But this time it was different, I would say, is how I would describe it. And again, I do hope more teams are just. We just need gunslingers. We need more gunslingers, and that's one thing that I will say is kind of ruins a lot of football is the checkdowns, because they can result into big plays. But so many times they're just 2 yards, 3 yards, -5 yards, -3 yards, 6 yards. Like, we all are just patiently waiting for the 15-yard play, the 45-yard play, the 50, the 75-yard plays, the 80-yard bombs. It's like that's what we're looking for as fans, just to see that. And it's felt like with so many teams this past few seasons, we're not getting that at all. And it's just kind of sucking the life out of like a lot of fandoms, because the teams just they're going super strong with defense, and their defense is incredible, which is fun to watch as well. But then they get the ball back and it's like, oh well, missed pass, deflected pass, missed pass, turn the ball back over. Run for 2 yards, run for -5 yards, incomplete pass, drive dead. It's just, we've been seeing so much with that with offenses here within the past few seasons as well, and it's just really dry. So that's why this team was a massive breath of fresh air, and I loved it. Now, of course, just doing a quick glance over the defense, you had Alex Anzalone lead the team by over 30 with 129 tackles. You had Aiden Hutchinson, who was just a very dominant rusher, having 11 and a half sacks and 14 tackles for loss. You had Brian Branch, who had 13 pass deflections and 3 interceptions. And you had Kirby Joseph, who had 4 interceptions, leading the team, and 11 pass deflections. Honestly, you look at this team and you wonder what can make them better. And I would honestly say this team is super close. You just add some depth to your offense. You keep your special teams, your kicker, your punter. Both of them are fantastic. You just work on. Honestly, you just work on your defensive line can be better, because you need to get more pressure, and you need to get a lot more sacks than this team did get. I mean, your leader only having 11 and a half, and then the closest person to him after that was Aleem McNeil, who only had 5. So there is quite a drop off from that. So definitely you need to work on the defensive line for this team. The defensive backs, I think they're just going to get better. Not going to be a bad idea to hunt for another good one. And maybe look into the linebacker core, possibly. You do have very good linebackers, though. So you just really want to focus on depth and just honestly taking best player available. Because you've got Jared Goff, who's an absolutely amazing quarterback. He is very talented. He can lose you games, but he can very much be the reason why you win a lot of games too. You've got one of the best running back rooms in the league. You've got a absolutely incredible wide receiver room with amazing wide receivers 1, 2, and 3. You have a top 5 tight end. So offense, you're golden. And again, the offensive line was arguably 1 or 2 swapping out every week. between which one was the better line. The Eagles, who have always had a good offensive line for the past several seasons, or the Lions. So offense-wise, just work on depth. Best player available in the draft. Defense needs work. You can't go allowing 30 points every game. But the thing is, whenever this defense does get locked down, it's dangerous. This team is very dangerous whenever that defense is locked down. But yeah, just honestly, there's not much that I can say about this team that's like, really, you have to go over after this or this. You honestly just work on whatever improves the overall team, because there's not many pieces missing. This team is a Super Bowl contender, and I am 100% with that. And I think they're going to be competing for a Super Bowl next season, and I cannot wait. And that is all I have for today, folks. Thank y'all for dropping by. If you liked, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you agree with me and thinking that the Lions are what I say they are, then please let me know in the comments. Let me know if I'm wrong or correct. And as always, tighten up, baby.